Hello everyone, day 10 of the Brave Warrior Challenge. Yesterday I had to pivot again. I was not able to complete my steps. I was just enjoying auntie time with my little niece who really wanted to play with me, and so I did that. And so I'm moving one more day for the Brave Warrior Challenge to continue. So remember, the end goal is 30K. So that's what I'm aiming for. But today's topic is about, are you too busy chasing the promised land? And what do I mean by that? Are you too busy chasing the promised land in terms of, I'll be happy when I buy my new car, or I'll be happy when I take that dream vacation. I'll be happy when I open up that business. I'll be happy when the finances are better. I'll be happy, you fill in the blank. So are you busy and caught up in chasing the promised land? And are you not just contemplating and being grateful for what you do have right now and where you're at right now? So I kind of tie it back. I like to tie things sometimes back to the Bible. So for me, it kind of reminds me of Moses that went off for 40 years in the promised land, chasing the promised land that God had in store for all of his people. And along through the journey, some of the people there got discouraged, and they went back to their old ways, their old bad habits. For example, one of the groups strayed away and created a gold calf, idolizing like their God. They replaced God with a God of their own, and they were impatient because they thought it was taking too long and the promised land was not there. And so they decided to take matters into their own hands. And they felt that in order for them to reach that promised land, they had to do things their own way. But the thing is that we can get also caught up in today's world chasing our own promised land versus the promised land that God has in store for us. So what do I mean by that? We might get caught up with chasing those big dreams. And it's not that I'm not saying that you shouldn't have dreams. You should always have dreams and goals. But sometimes we get caught up with things that are not aligned with what God has for us. And we start idolizing other things. For example, we might start idolizing, there's a little friend here. We might start idolizing that dream house, that dream car, and forget in the first place who gave you the money to be able to have that car, that house, etc. So you have to keep those things in mind. Don't spend your life chasing for the promised land that you think is a promised land, and you lose out on all of God's promises along your journey, along life. Because the best things are in life is the journey, is the actual things that you go through in life. It's not those things that sometimes you're chasing. It's the small things that make the most matter in life. You know, who knows? Maybe you're not supposed to have that big mansion that you've always wanted. Maybe God has something else in store for you. Maybe He has a big plan for your business. Instead of using that money for a house, you know, like, you have to honor where you're at. And God has promises for you, but we have to stay on course. Just like the people that are following Moses, they had to stay on course to follow the promised land that God had in store for them. You know, it's easy to get distracted and find other things that we think make us happy. But, you know, we have to always kind of go back to Him and say, God, this situation, you know, I feel like it's taking too long. I feel I'm going through stuff. Can you help me out? Because I want to reach the promised land that you have for me. Let me not forget your promises for me. You know, I know for example, my dad, you know, he worked all his life and he had a promised land, right? He wanted to go back to Mexico and live out his retirement in full. Not to say that he didn't take vacations with my mom sometimes, but he was kind of waiting off to live his full best life, when in fact he had everything that he could dream of just right there in front of his face, right? And you lose track sometimes of that. So I want to encourage you today that you are where you're at, and that's where you're supposed to be right now. God wants you exactly where you are right now, where you're supposed to be. And if it's not the best place right now, guess what? God is moving things behind the scenes to get you to that promised land. That I could tell you, God is for sure moving things around for you to give you that promised land. So stay encouraged, stay in the course, and stay in the race of life, and don't fall out of it, because God has something beautiful for you. God bless, and bye-bye.